Once more, good morning. Dear colleagues, let us now to return to our agenda. As far as you remember, yesterday we started examination of item 5E, the document WHC-19-43.com-5E, report on strengthening of dialogue between the advisory bodies and states parties. You remember that the presentation have been done and we completed the list of the speakers who wanted to give comments on this matter. So I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Rossler to introduce the item. Please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As you remember, we had a number of speakers on our speakers list, and I'm just reading them out so that you can get prepared with your statements. Norway, Tanzania, Indonesia, Bahrain, Brazil, Hungary, Guatemala, Kuwait, Tunisia, and Australia. Maybe, Mr. Chair, you would like to say who else wants to speak? Thank you.
Azerbaijan, China. That's it. Thank you. Burkina Faso. Thank you. So, mostly welcome. The first speaker, Norway.
Thank you, Chair, for giving Norway the floor. We welcome this important document and subsequent discussion. This is a matter of building and maintaining mutual trust, the sharing of knowledge and experience, of building capacities, reducing politicization, and avoiding creation of expectations which may be hard to fulfill. Dialogue should increase transparency, improve decision-making, enhance the credibility of the Convention, and improve conservation. Dialogue must include all relevant stakeholders, including site managers, civil society, local communities, and indigenous peoples, amongst others. For Norway, it's crucial that the technical evaluation of nominations and the monitoring of properties are based on scientific evidence and consistent procedures in line with the operational guidelines and the rules of procedure. The results of the technical processes must be credible, valid, transparent, and consistent. Processes and advice must be institutional, documented, and transparent. We strongly support the measures already put in place to improve dialogue under the processes related to nominations, state of conservation, and the open approach towards accepting any invitation from any state party for dialogue by both the advisory bodies and the World Heritage Centre. We recognize the need for us, the states parties to this convention, to better understand how and why certain recommendations are being made. At the same time, we all have an obligation, as outlined in the operational guidelines, to provide information within the established statutory processes and timelines. More specifically, paragraphs 171, 172, and 174 of the operational guidelines lay out a foundation for early communication and dialogue to ensure a timely response and appropriate solutions for various issues. A significant potential to increase dialogue has been undertaken since last year's meeting in Manama. In this regard, we wish to sincerely thank our host and the delegation of Azerbaijan, and in particular our colleague Rashad Baratli for leading the ad hoc working group through the highly complex task of initiating the reform of the nomination process. Azerbaijan's wise leadership has structured our work, allowing exceptional results towards the future nomination process, which will increase dialogue and collaboration between states parties, the advisory bodies, and the World Heritage Centre. Build capacities in the states parties, strengthen the quality of nominations, and streamline the many processes related to nominations. These significant achievements, to be further discussed and decided under item 12, could be the legacy of Baku. In our collective memory, it could be a qualitative turning point for dialogue referenced in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Norway. Tanzania, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this is an interesting agenda item the Tanzania delegation wishes to associate with. Chair, Tanzania delegation commends ICROM for the good report presented. Chair, The Tanzania delegation agrees with ICROM that dialogue is not negotiations. Indeed, effective dialogue is mostly needed between the advisory bodies and the concerned state parties, but also among all stakeholders of the World Heritage Convention. Chair, effective dialogue should be constructive for the purpose of increasing transparency, accountability, and optimizing future decisions to be made by the World Heritage Committee. Chair, Tanzania delegation believes that the issue of effective dialogue needs a special strategy. Tanzania delegation proposes this special strategy because an effective dialogue does not have a simple answer or simple solution. It is a complex business with a specific agenda, time frame, and expected results. For example, there are issues that have been discussed in the previous committee sessions as areas of concern to the state parties. These issues keep on reappearing up to date. The delegation of Tanzania notes that in some cases, properties are put on the danger list without clear identified corrective measures. As a result, therefore, without the desired state of conservation for removal from the danger list, as enshrined in the operation guidelines, paragraph 183 to 189. Chair, ignoring the use of approved tools leads to personalization of advice and judgment. Chair, Tanzania delegation knows sites in Africa and other parts of the world where sites have been on the danger list for more than 15 years. And indeed, even where the corrective measures were identified, they keep on changing due to necessary updates, creating an endless chain. Chair, Tanzania believes that the lobbying for inscription by state parties, the lobbying for their sites not to be put on the danger list, and the lobbying of their sites not to be deleted are very clear indicators of inadequate or lack of effective dialogue. Chair, leaving these elements may, at the end of the day, threaten the integrity of the committee itself. Hence, a strategy to develop an effective dialogue is a necessity and it should be put in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Indonesia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your leadership. An effective and constructive dialogues between advisory bodies, the state parties, and related parties must occur at all stages. It should be not limited to nomination and monitoring process only, but should be at all times as needed. Effective dialogues should be able to maintain credibility of the World Heritage Conventions, while at the same time it should be able to bridge and give solution to the specific needs and circumstances of the state parties. It should be able to strike a balance between parties without compromising the World Heritage Conventions. Chair, we are expected to mainstream the principles of sustainable development into our national process, including and not limited to the outstanding universal values of the World Heritage. In order to do so, we should be able to keep a harmony between protections and conservation purposes, as well as the rights to develop the state's parties. This connection with regard to sustainable development goals is inexcusable. World Heritage General Assembly, a mechanism that has been in existence, should be optimized as an open dialogue forum between state parties, World Heritage Centers, advisory bodies, and other stakeholders, including local communities, experts, and NGOs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Bahrain, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would also like to start by thanking ICROM and the advisory bodies for the presentation yesterday, which was quite illuminating and has touched on many issues that will help alleviate the misunderstanding and the mistrust between advisory bodies and state parties. And we appreciate most of the proposed actions and the dialogue between the advisory bodies and state parties which has been long awaited, actually. It's been mentioned in many committee meetings before. We also noted with appreciation that capacity building through ICROM and the C2C centers, the category 2 centers, will help more understanding of the nomination process and the required subsequent actions and post-inscription. Allow me, however, to comment on the capacity building component and training. In view of the Arab Regional Center, Category 2 Center, which has long experience in this field, in partnership and cooperation with the advisory bodies and obviously with the World Heritage Center, that we consider ourselves as a relay for the center. We also note that we have also, at the initiative from the World Heritage Center, we are cooperating as Category 2 centers in the periodic reporting for each region, starting with the Arab countries this year. However, one thing I find missing is in the relationship, which could help the mistrust that exists between, I'm not sure about how the advisory bodies feel, but I think state parties have some grievances and feeling that they haven't been involved. I think mainly in the evaluation process and what follows before the inscription and after the inscription. And to help them be involved in that, we have with ICOMOS initiated a new training and capacity building to train professionals in the region, starting with our region in the Arab world, to train professionals on the evaluation process and train them in the field and theoretically. And we started last year with the first 15, and we are having some more training this year, and we will have 2 courses next year. I think this will help them understand the process, help them to participate with the advisory bodies in the evaluation process, and also help them in whether it's desk research, but more so to help their own countries in understanding how evaluation process works, and before they nominate a site, they will understand what would be required of them. I know I'm running out of time, but I would like to say I consider the report from ICROM, the advisory bodies, quite positive, but I would like to add a component to the training and capacity building, and that is the evaluation process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now the floor is going to Brazil.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We warmly welcome the draft decision aimed at the strengthening of dialogue between the advisory bodies and the state parties. We understand that the strengthening of this dialogue is extremely important to ensure transparency and inclusivity, with the purpose of reinforcing the credibility of the World Heritage List. We also welcome with satisfaction the request to the advisory bodies to prepare specific capacity building modules on the nomination and management planning processes. With reference to the scope of this dialogue, which should contribute to the improvement of the decision-making process, we understand that dialogue is needed at all phases of the process and should start as early as possible. We, however, believe that an instance of dialogue between advisory bodies and state parties should be considered, especially before negative recommendations are published by the World Heritage Center. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much for your comment. Please, Hungary, now welcomed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to wish a good morning to all colleagues. We would like to thank the advisory bodies for their presentation, and we also want to thank the delegation of Cuba, because we remember that it was upon their proposal that this very important and pertinent item was inscribed on our agenda. We have read this report with great attention, and as it is acknowledged in the paper itself, and as we have heard several times, the need for better dialogue between advisory bodies and states parties have been more and more prominent in our discussions in recent years. Dialogue is crucial and important in all processes of the Convention. And we would also like to take a moment and commend the document, which we find of very high quality. Most of what we wanted to say has actually already been expressed by others, Norway in particular. But we would still like to say that dialogue helps improving transparency and understanding of the procedures. We ourselves have often felt that many issues actually stem simply from the fact that there's a lack of knowledge about the advisory body's methods of work, and further efforts have to be made in this regard. We would also like to highlight and agree with paragraph 18 of the report, which mentions the discussion held in the framework of the ad hoc working group regarding the two-phase nomination approach, which would allow to have dialogue at the earlier stages of the nomination process. In our view, this is of crucial importance because in relation to nominations, in order for the advice of the advisory bodies delivered through dialogue to be effective and to be able to be implemented, resulting in higher quality nominations, this discussion needs to happen early. We also agree with some of Bahrain's comments about the unfortunately existing mistrust, which needs to be addressed as well, and we are hopeful that early dialogue could also help in this regard. We also share the views expressed during the presentation about the importance of creating more opportunities for capacity building to address specific issues identified through dialogue. So in closing, we would like to thank once again the advisory bodies for this presentation, this document. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Hungary. Guatemala, please.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Queremos agradecer el informe sobre el proceso para el fortalecimiento del diálogo entre los órganos consultivos y los Estados parte. Compartimos con otros miembros del comité la importancia fundamental del diálogo para la efectividad de la Convención, pero un diálogo permanente que no se limite a los procesos de nominación o a los reportes de estado de conservación, sino que también permita el fortalecimiento de las capacidades locales, atendiendo a las circunstancias de cada región, estado parte y sitios del patrimonio mundial, donde los centros categoría 2 pueden tomar una posición central en diálogo con los mismos órganos consultivos. Queremos ser enfáticos al decir que se necesita un diálogo permanente porque la Convención no se trata de inscribir sitios en la lista. La Convención está inspirada en la necesidad de proteger y conservar los sitios que representan lo más valioso de la naturaleza y de la creación humana. Consideramos que el diálogo debe ser el principal canal de comunicación de esta Convención en todos los procesos de la misma, desde la identificación, nominación e inscripción de los sitios, pero también procurando un sistema de manejo sostenible para garantizar la preservación a largo plazo, permitiendo gestionar los riesgos y presiones que atentan sobre los bienes patrimoniales y especialmente sobre su valor universal excepcional. No cabe duda que el diálogo será más necesario en los momentos de dificultad, de necesidad o de crisis, por lo que apoyamos decididamente cualquier medida que permita fortalecer el diálogo entre todos los miembros de esta Convención. Estamos de acuerdo con los órganos consultivos sobre varios puntos del reporte, sobre todo en el hecho que el diálogo no debe sustituir los procesos técnicos de evaluación. Por el contrario, debe enriquecer los mecanismos de análisis y validación, permitiendo a todas las partes involucradas contar con información útil, veraz y oportuna para el desempeño de sus actividades. Sabemos que el diálogo es importante y fundamental, pero también debemos entender que el diálogo debe ser útil, respetuoso, constructivo y continuado, para lo cual es necesario revisar los canales de comunicación, la claridad de los mensajes y los medios más efectivos para mantener estos diálogos. En este sentido, y considerando la gran cantidad de términos técnicos y administrativos relacionados con la Convención, Guatemala desea expresar la necesidad de sostener una revisión constante de todos los elementos vinculados a la implementación de la misma para conseguir una estandarización válida del lenguaje que permita mejorar el diálogo. Recordemos que el patrimonio mundial es una dimensión transversal de la sociedad actual que vincula a entidades globales, expertos, investigadores, instituciones públicas, entidades privadas, sociedad civil, pueblos indígenas, comunidades locales, jóvenes, políticos, autoridades y usuarios, por lo que no solo es necesario fortalecer el proceso de diálogo, sino también procurar que todos estemos en capacidad de hablar el mismo idioma, es decir, que podamos comunicarnos efectivamente y que los mensajes sean lo más claro posible entre el emisor y la audiencia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, Kuwait is welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. First of all, I'd like to thank the advisory report for the report. To me, what the report is very, very general report, not much details I could have got of it. There is no two people in this room can disagree that dialogue is important. all I've seen is very general terminology in the report. I was wondering, when the report was done, was it done through a dialogue between the advisory boards and the state parties, so the dialogue have meaningful outcomes? And there is a point that really strikes me going through the report when it says that the dialogue will not change the outcomes. And I think, no, dialogue might change the outcomes, because through dialogues you clarify things. Dialogue doesn't mean talking general terms. Dialogue means explaining specific technical points from the state parties and the advisory boards. And if those dialogue and those arguments is valid, it will change the outcome. So if the advisory board, through his report, has concrete thinking that dialogue will not change the outcomes, I think we have a major lack of dialogue between the advisory board, or a major lack of understanding the meaning of dialogue, because dialogue might change the outcomes. I also would love to see specific ways of promoting these dialogues. I would love to see the advisory board throughout their experience to go, concrete, specific ways to improve the dialogues, not just saying dialogue is important. And the dialogue is important at the beginning and most important at the end. And look, my colleague says from Brazil, especially when there is not negative, I want to say, there is a potential rejection of dossier. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tunisia, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais tout d'abord remercier l'ICROM et toutes les instances consultatives de leur rapport, qui est extrêmement important. Et je crois que ce point à l'ordre du jour de nos travaux est probablement l'un des plus importants que l'on va traiter, parce qu'il ne concerne pas une situation factuelle, il concerne l'avenir de notre système dans sa globalité. Et on se pose ici des questions de viabilité, de cohérence et de crédibilité. C'est pour ça que je voudrais renouveler mes remerciements pour la qualité du rapport, mais je rejoins beaucoup de mes prédécesseurs qui ont pris la parole pour dire que le dialogue est extrêmement important, il doit être à toutes les étapes du processus pour que ce dialogue prenne la totalité et la plénitude de son sens. Je crois que il y a un état d'esprit qui s'installe par moments pour dire qu'il y a une relativité ici et un absolu là. Je crois que nous devons tous être mus par l'idée que nous sommes tous faillibles, que nous avons des appréciations et que les appréciations doivent être confrontées et confortées par le dialogue. La finalité de ce processus devrait nous ramener à rejoindre davantage de crédibilité, de viabilité, d'égalité, mais aussi de solidarité. Je crois que l'idée même du système d'inscription repose sur l'idée que le génie de la nature et le génie de l'être humain doivent être reconnus par notre système. Ce génie va s'exprimer différemment et va s'exprimer de manière différente d'une région et d'une culture à une autre. Il nous faut créer les canaux, les mécanismes pour que cela soit le mieux reconnu et le plus largement diversifié. Il nous importe également, Monsieur le Président, de souligner que l'enjeu de la qualité des candidatures est un enjeu important, mais aussi il faut mettre en place des systèmes d'accompagnement pour que ce droit à présenter des candidatures soit le plus largement et la manière la plus égalitaire partagée par l'ensemble des États parties. Bien évidemment, au cœur de cette discussion, il y a le respect indiscutable que nous devons à la science et aux scientifiques, mais dans un contexte comme le nôtre, l'appréciation doit être inclusive et que toutes les parties doivent se mettre autour d'une table avant, pendant et même après une inscription en vue d'une meilleure conservation. Je crois que cela ne doit échapper à personne et il est de notre intérêt que nous concevions nos rapports comme des rapports de convergence et non pas d'opposition entre deux bords. Je crois que cela n'est dans l'intérêt de personne. Merci beaucoup de votre attention.
Thank you very much for your position. Australia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Australia welcomes this report on strengthening dialogue between the advisory bodies and states parties. Our comments on this item are focused on the conservation of properties on the World Heritage List and the list of World Heritage in danger. I'm mindful of the separate report on reactive monitoring to be discussed under Agenda Item 7. That report is inseparable from any discussion on strengthening dialogue with the advisory bodies. Its many recommendations are substantive, important, and go a long way towards identifying the changes we need to orient the committee's deliberations more towards the conservation of existing properties on the World Heritage List. Agenda Paper 5E emphasises the committee's decisions and deliberations being focused on constructive dialogue, which in the words of the paper implies open, transparent and two-way exchange to enable states parties to better understand how and why certain recommendations are being made and to provide additional information that may not have been considered previously within the established statutory processes and timelines. We agree with this objective and the importance of transparency in these processes. We are beginning to see the benefits of this sort of exchange in the nomination process, with the upstream process and other measures that are emerging from the nomination reform discussions in the ad hoc working group, for which we thank Azerbaijan for its leadership. These positive developments provide strong incentive for the committee to consider how we might similarly improve exchange and dialogue in the state of conservation process. Australia's own experience is that there are opportunities to improve how and when dialogue occurs between the advisory bodies, states parties and the World Heritage Centre, and I do underline that we have accepted many opportunities to have that dialogue, and it has been beneficial certainly for us as a state party. But as states parties, we reach a point in the state of conservation process where we lose visibility of what the report will conclude and recommend. At best, we can try to deduce what will be concluded based on our prior discussions during reactive monitoring missions, information requests and engagement with civil society. We believe the current practice of states parties receiving mission reports and SOC reports when they are published on the UNESCO website is inconsistent with the objectives outlined in this paper. We worry that this lack of visibility at the end of the SOC cycle, the absence of a no surprises approach, results in states parties being disenfranchised at a time where their engagement is most critical. And let me emphasise here that no surprises does not in any way imply no critical analysis and advice. State of conservation reports should be viewed as constructive documents that provide evidence-based advice to states parties to assist them in dealing effectively with the challenges they face, often of their own making, often of our own making, but also often not. We need the SOC process to work constructively with and for states parties. Continuous improvement is the name of the game, and we have no doubt this is a shared objective between states parties, the advisory bodies and the Centre.
Thank you very much. Azerbaijan, please. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Azerbaijan also joins the previous speakers in highlighting the important role of dialogue and the impact of the dialogue to the overall process. In this regard, we welcome the report of the advisory bodies and the ICROM in highlighting these important elements in their report. But we believe the dialogue must be inclusive. The dialogue is a prerequisite of the credibility, and when we speak all the time about the credibility, I think the dialogue comes first, and we have to ensure the dialogue between advisory bodies and state parties, and this in its turn will contribute to the credibility. So credibility, in our view, starts from the evaluation process and goes along to the next phases. We also support the idea that the dialogue should be in all phases of the process, starting from the tentative list, goes to the evaluation process, and so on. And in that regard, I'm very thankful for the members of the ad hoc group. We extensively discussed this issue, and there is already one instrument, I would say, the mechanism that already proposed by the ad hoc group as a preliminary assessment, which we believe will be a contribution to strengthening the dialogue. And the recommendations will be discussed soon on this issue. We also would like to highlight that mandatory the mechanism that we need to put in place that makes this dialogue as a mandatory process, not depending on the willingness of advisory bodies or state parties, but it should be a mandatory which will define the framework, timetable, and really concrete elements that will strengthen the communication between state parties and advisory bodies. There were some ideas which we really disagree, that the dialogue cannot change the scientific evaluation of the advisory bodies. We believe that this is actually the sense of the dialogue, that we can discuss with the advisory bodies the way how they see, because we believe that the scientific evaluation of the value of the sites has always the room for interpretation. In that regard, we need to have more opportunities for the state parties to explain the way how they see the values of the sites. I thank you very much.
Thank you. China, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, China welcomes this document, prepared by the professional bodies, ICRAM, on behalf of the three. China has always been encouraging and supporting dialogue between advisory bodies and the state parties. We believe that we have benefited a great deal from the process. We are of the view that the principle of dialogue is equality of the parties, and that the foundation of the dialogue is mutual respect. And the goal of the dialogue is to better preserve and conserve the world heritage and promote sustainable development of the communities. We also agree, we wish to echo with the distinguished ambassador of Azerbaijan, that this process of dialogue, it should be institutionalized. It should be a formal process throughout, meaning that there should be much greater chance of opportunities to discuss. We also believe that it is crucially important that for the two parties concerned, both on the one hand, the state parties should try their best to understand and meet the needs of conservation and the operational guidelines. And on the other hand, the advisory bodies should try their best to understand and respect the local knowledge and the traditions of heritage sites. These knowledges and the traditions are the results of hundreds of years of development, and are the upholders of the national spirit and the reflection of socioeconomic development. Most of all, these knowledge and the tradition are often the cornerstone of state parties to protect and conserve the world heritage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Burkina Faso, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le Burkina Faso remercie le secrétariat pour le rapport soumis sur ce thème important, comme l'ont relevé la plupart des intervenants. Un dialogue constructif et efficace, c'est ce auquel toutes les parties prenantes doivent s'engager. C'est pourquoi nous soutenons la réflexion en cours sur la réforme du processus de nomination qui prend en compte le renforcement du dialogue entre les États parties, les organes consultatifs et le secrétariat. Pour cela, nous pensons que l'on devrait travailler à l'amélioration de la communication avec les États parties dans une approche constructive et non d'opposition, et d'adversité pour éviter les incompréhensions et les mauvaises appréciations des recommandations. Nous considérons que le secrétariat et les organes consultatifs ont un rôle d'accompagnement des États parties. Monsieur le Président, pour notre part, nous souhaiterons remercier le secrétariat et les organes consultatifs pour la disponibilité dont ils font preuve et les exhortons à toujours œuvrer à améliorer la qualité du dialogue. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. We finalize with the list of the speakers now. Maybe advisory bodies representative will have some comments. For a couple of minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would ask your indulgence. I'd like to respond to some of the questions, but it's very possible that my sister advisory bodies might also want to take the floor to answer specific questions, if you will. So first of all, let me thank very much all of the delegates, members of the World Heritage Committee, for their very interesting and useful interventions in regard to this agenda item. Just as a first comment, because this was one of the questions that was asked, the document that you had before you was put together in a discussion between the advisory bodies and also shared with the World Heritage Center. But as I think I mentioned in my first intervention on this issue, the idea was to have this dialogue with you, the members of the committee, at this point. And judging from the responses and the comments that you have made right now, in fact, this paper has served to actually, well, I won't say open the dialogue, because there's been dialogue in the past, but it has served to essentially bring out some of these key issues of dialogue. So I'm hoping that the paper was at least useful enough to spur the thoughts of the committee members in regard to this important issue. Now, going on more specifically to some of the comments that were made, I think it is important. Several of the delegations have pointed out that that indeed these dialogue processes have been going on for some time now, and they're buried, or not buried, but they're part of some of the various processes that we have already been discussing in different venues at different points in time. Already in the past, the whole upstream process came about as a means to allow the advisory bodies, particularly in the nomination process, to begin having dialogue with the states parties at an earlier process, at an earlier moment. The moments in the process of nominations where there's a first panel and then there's a dialogue with states parties before going to a second panel is also a process that's already been put in place to enhance this dialogue. We have also now been talking about other reform efforts, and it's important to link this agenda item with some of the other agenda items that we have before us. It was mentioned by Azerbaijan and a number of other delegations. The ad hoc working group is indeed talking exactly about that, setting up a phased nomination process. All of those things are meant to help us in a more concrete way move forward with dialogue. This agenda item being a more general discussion, but the idea is that throughout our various processes, there are possibilities to improve the process. Having said that, I would really like to thank the Australian delegation for mentioning the fact that it is true most of our efforts at dialogue up until now have been done for the nomination process, and I realize that that's a very important process for members of the committee and for states parties in general, but I think it is definitely time for us to think a little bit more about how to strengthen that in the SOC process. Obviously, that's something that ECROM is much closer to than the nomination process, and we, I think, along with the other advisory bodies, would very much welcome the idea of actually trying to take what we've learned from the nomination process and trying to install this dialogue into and actually move it into SOC and actually really create a much stronger dialogue also for the SOC process. Having said that, I think it's important to recognize that these methods, these working methods for dialogue do need to be explained better. The working methods of the advisory bodies themselves need to be explained better, so that means better communication. It's going to mean working to institutionalize, I think, these issues in a better way. I think one of the committee members mentioned also language issues. I think that's something, standardizing language issues, I think is something that we need to look at a little bit more. And capacity building. This is something that Bahrain emphasized very strongly. The idea of developing capacity building modules, of working more closely with the Category 2 centers. I think all of that is something that we need to do. The final comment that I would like to make is perhaps a misunderstanding, and maybe the document wasn't written clearly enough on this. I don't think the idea was to say that dialogue can never change, can never lead to a change of opinion or a clarification of opinion. I think what we said is that we shouldn't be viewing dialogue as a negotiation. That is, we go into a process, I'm in one position, you're in another position, and we try to reach I give a little, you give a little, I give a little, you give a little, because the basis of this convention is a strong scientific, a rigorous scientific outcome to our results. So I think we have to maintain that rigorous scientific outcome. I think, however, having said that, it is very possible that decisions might change or might be altered as new evidence is being presented. And if, the idea of dialogue is to have transparency, is to allow new facts or new issues to come to light in such a way that it allows for a better understanding of the site in question, whether it be SOC or whether it be nomination. So the idea is not to say that dialogue can never lead to changes in thinking. It's to say that it's not a negotiation process. It's a process whereby all of the information necessary actually comes to light, and everyone is able to take, the advisory bodies, states parties, eventually you as a committee are able to have full information and full transparency to be able to ultimately take the right decision. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think I've reached the end of my interventions, but I'm fairly certain that IUCN and ECOMOS are going to want to say something also. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from ECOMOS, please? IUCN, I see.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first of all, let me echo my colleague Joe King's comments. Everything that he said aligns with IUCN's view. IUCN is fully open to dialogue at all times, and I think has expressed that willingness through our history of working as an advisory body. We have been open to reforms to our working processes. We've subjected ourselves to many external and independent reviews, which have helped us to evolve those processes, including the dialogue issue. We do currently have numerous opportunities for those exchanges, and we work hard to ensure we have an open door always to those processes. So within the evaluation process, as you know, and as we have outlined, quite clearly, we are also very committed to the upstream process and the reforms that are going on in connection with that, including the support to the work of the ad hoc working group. And we also welcome the additional budget proposals which are suggested in item 9A concerning upstream support. For IUCN, as has been said already, dialogue is a two-way process. We do, though, recognise that it is currently constrained quite severely by timelines and budget issues, and I think we all must recognise this. We welcome the efforts to redeploy budgets from the reduction in the focus on nominations into conservation. However, the proposals that are before this committee for the new biennium of funding in 2020-21 include a reduction of over 7% to IUCN's budget. And I would point out that there are no budget lines provided to us to deal with regional support or global capacity building strategies. So I just make that point not to harp on the budgeting issue, but it is absolutely central, I think, to our capacity to expand our support as willing as we are. And really just to close by stressing again and repledging our willingness to work with you to really enhance this process within the frameworks that are, I think, quite clearly articulated in the paper. So thank you.
Thank you very much. ECOMOS, please.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Je vais me faire aussi également l'écho des commentaires de mes collègues de l'ICROM et de l'UICN. Et je vais peut-être ajouter donc, la perspective de l'ICOMOS en des mots un peu différents. L'ICOMOS, ces dernières années, a surtout concentré ses efforts en termes d'amélioration du dialogue, notamment en ce qui concerne le processus d'évaluation, les processus en amont et le conseil qui est donné sur l'état de conservation des biens. Et ce, dans un souci d'améliorer à la fois l'efficacité des processus, mais aussi de les rendre plus transparents, tout en travaillant dans un environnement contraint en termes de calendrier et de ressources. Peut-être pour vous donner des exemples un tout petit peu plus précis, en termes de processus d'évaluation, on a introduit durant le panel des réunions avec les États parties, le rapport intermédiaire a également été introduit et ça a permis, de notre point de vue en tout cas, une bonne base de compréhension mutuelle, en tout cas sur ce qui concerne les valeurs des biens qui sont présentés et les challenges de gestion et de protection des biens. Donc, afin de permettre une meilleure compréhension mutuelle de part et d'autre sur ces dossiers. En ce qui concerne les processus en amont, on a établi un mécanisme qui institutionnalise le conseil qui est donné. En ce qui concerne le conseil qui sont donnés à travers les missions sur l'état de conservation des biens, ça permet finalement une approche plus collaborative avec les États afin de discuter la façon dont les décisions du comité peuvent être mises en œuvre. Donc juste pour souligner, en ce qui concerne le dialogue et le point de vue de l'ICOMOS sur ce dialogue, il est nécessaire qu'il touche tous les aspects de la mise en œuvre de la Convention, qu'il ne se focalise pas uniquement sur le processus d'évaluation et le suivi de l'état de conservation. Il est constructif quand il implique un échange ouvert et qui est basé sur une volonté mutuelle, et il est efficace quand il est conduit le plus en amont possible. Je voudrais rebondir également sur ce qu'a dit l'honorable délégué du Bahreïn en ce qui concerne le renforcement des capacités. Et l'ICOMOS voit une réelle opportunité là de win-win partenariat avec les États parties. D'une part, afin de permettre à l'ICOMOS de renforcer son réseau d'experts au niveau régional, mais aussi de faire mieux comprendre ce que les organisations consultatives attendent finalement en termes d'évaluation et de suivi de l'état de conservation, ce qui permet également de renforcer les capacités au niveau des experts de la région. Et finalement, pour finir, l'ICOMOS est ouvert à cette discussion et ouvert à l'amélioration de ce qui peut être fait dans la mesure du possible en ce qui concerne le dialogue. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Now we had all comments. Now I would like to ask the rapporteur whether there are some amendments. We have one, as far as I know, on the draft decision.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received one amendment proposed by the Delegation of Azerbaijan. It's for a new paragraph 9 at the end of the decision. So we'll just wait for that to come on the screen and scroll down. So the new paragraph would read, invites the advisory bodies to engage more in dialogue with the states, parties and committee members in the nomination process, reactive monitoring missions and preparation of tentative lists with the aim of achieving more credibility, transparency and better implementation of the Convention. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on this item? Indonesia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Indonesia would like to second the amendments proposal by delegations of Azerbaijan. What is it? I would like to put some insertions, however, that invites, let me read it, Mr. Chair, invites the advisory body to engage effective and constructive dialogue, so we delete in here, and committee members in the, as in line with Indonesia's interventions conveyed by the ambassador of Indonesia, that dialogue has to occur at all stages So what is it? Inscriptions to the World Heritage is not the end goal, is not the ultimate goal. What is more important is what is it to maintain the status of World Heritage post inscriptions. So we'd like to add post inscriptions in the order. So first, I would like to add post inscriptions in the order, and then the second, I would like to change the order. So invites the advisory bodies to engage effective and constructive dialogue with state parties and committee members in the post inscriptions, nominations process, monitoring missions, and post inscriptions. Sorry, let me repeat it. In the first in the preparations of tentative list, preparations of tentative list, second, the nominations process, reactive monitoring missions, and post inscriptions, with the aim of achieving more credibility, transparency, and better implementations of the convention and the sustainable development goals. Because of course, we respect the conventions, we fully committed to the conventions, but we also need to adapt to the current development with achieving the sustainable development goals. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let us look to the final version. More dialogue has to be taken away. So, and constructive dialogue with state parties. You have to take more dialogue, yes. With the state parties and common members in the preparation of tentative list and post-inscription. No, we have to put like that. The preparation of tentative list in the nomination process and the post-inscription to change the post-inscription is the after process. So, any comments? So, Indonesia.
I thank you to take the floor again, Mr. Chair. At the end of the paragraph, I'd like to insert and better implementations of the conventions and the sustainable development goals. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
No other opinions? Brazil, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have submitted an amendment in writing to the rapporteur, and it's an amendment that is supported by Brazil, by Tunisia, and Kuwait to the Azerbaijani proposal. The proposal mainly consists of including in the text, maybe after nomination process, including before the publication of negative recommendations, and then the rest can read as it is. Thank you very much.
Any objections? Any other opinions? I think that it is reflecting the general view. Guatemala, please. Guatemala.
Gracias, señor presidente. Guatemala quisiera también respaldar estas propuestas de enmienda, principalmente porque consideramos que existen muchos estados parte que no se encuentran actualmente en proceso de nominación, pero también necesitan mantener un diálogo constante con los órganos consultivos y con otras partes de la Convención para garantizar la preservación de los sitios que ya están inscritos en la lista y que están bajo amenaza y constantes riesgos de deterioro y pérdida de su valor universal excepcional. Por lo tanto, respaldamos las propuestas de enmienda y estamos de acuerdo con la necesidad de un diálogo permanente y continuado durante todas las fases del proceso de gestión de los sitios patrimonio mundial.
Thank you very much. St. Kitts and Nevis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question of semantics. The paragraph 9 as it stands is a little bit unwieldy, difficult to follow. My suggestion would be streamlining it a bit, invites the advisory bodies to engage in effective and constructive dialogue, and further down, on post-inscriptions, monitoring missions with the aim of achieving more effective credibility, transparency, etc.
Thank you.
I think it flows. Thank you.
Cuba, please.
Gracias, señor presidente. En primer lugar, queremos agradecer y estamos completamente de acuerdo con el análisis, la profundidad con que se ha analizado este punto, que como bien se recordaba fue propuesto por Cuba en la pasada sesión del comité, y realmente creemos que se ha abordado con mucha seriedad esta temática que ha estado presente en todas las discusiones, de algún modo, la necesidad de ese diálogo, y es que es lógico en una convención cuyo objetivo precisamente se fundamenta en el diálogo entre los Estados partes y los demás órganos actores dentro de la convención. Queremos expresar en primer lugar nuestra satisfacción con ese análisis, y con relación a la propuesta de proyecto de decisión, simplemente nos gustaría, y tal vez pueda hacer un análisis de redacción, pero nos parece que el párrafo 8 es más general y debía cerrar la decisión. Es decir, es un párrafo que llama a todos a ese diálogo más conciliador, y que tal vez el párrafo 9 pueda estar mucho más arriba dentro del proyecto. Gracias.
Thank you very much. So, then Bahrain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do not oppose the proposal by Brazil. It's just that the word negative can be very subjective, and we believe that all recommendations brought forward by the advisory bodies are based on scientific evaluations, and many of them are supported by quite comprehensive reviews done. So it's just a matter of the word negative and keeping it general as recommendations.
I can agree. We can take the word negative from there, including before the publication of recommendations in general, just recommendations, and the post-inscription. So, no, Tunisia, please. I say Tunisia.
Monsieur le Président, c'est juste une remarque de forme dans la version française, à la fin du point 9, dans le but d'obtenir plus de crédibilité. Effacement, je crois que ça ne colle pas, donc on dirait de crédibilité, d'efficacité et de transparence dans une meilleure mise en œuvre, ou en vue d'une meilleure mise en œuvre de la Convention. Effacement, voilà, d'efficacité. Merci.
Merci. China, please.
Thank you, Chair. China is not proposing any wording changes, but we support the addition of number 9 as a whole. I think every country, all the proposals have raised with regarding to the detailed wording, they are essentially meaning the same thing. So we support all the texts. Thank you.
Thank you, China. Burkina Faso, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous soutenons également ce projet d'amendement. Nous voulons toutefois demander si c'était nécessaire de maintenir membres du comité, puisque les États partis, les membres du comité sont également États partis. Nous pensons que le langage simple, c'est de juste garder, justement, à engager un dialogue effectif et constructif avec les États partis.
I think we can agree with such kind of approach.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Indonesia, please.
I thank you, Chair. Just in line with Indonesia's input to add the and sustainable development goals in the English text, Indonesia would like to see the insertions of and sustainable development goals in the French text as well. I thank you, Chair.
You are correct. Thank you. I hope we're coming to agreement. We have to finalize with this 5E at least. So, if you don't mind, we come to the approval of the draft decision of 5E in general, not... Rapporteur, please. Any comments?
I will just read our final, I think, paragraph 9 with a very small suggestion. So it would read, invites the advisory bodies to engage in effective and constructive dialogue in the preparation of tentative lists in the nomination process, including before the publication of recommendations. And I would change here just to say, and post-inscription. Just a language thing. And then perhaps including monitoring missions with the indulgence of the committee. And then it would read, including monitoring missions with the aim of achieving more effective credibility, transparency and better implementation of the Convention and Sustainable Development Goals.
So the final version is professional, so I hope that any other proposals are on the table. So can we approve it? No objections. So we approve 5E draft document in common. Thank you. Dear colleagues, we're supposed to start the day, but we now proceed to the major agenda item to examine, namely item 7 on the state of conservation of World Heritage properties. This year, there are 3 draft decisions proposed for adoption within this document. Decision 43-71 on statutory matters related to the reactive monitoring process. Decision 43-7.2 on pressing conservation issues. Decision 43-7.3 on other conservative issues. I would like to inform you that, as for the past years, this item will remain open to possibly take into account the debates held on the agenda, items 7A and 7B. The draft decision 7.2 and 7.3 will be therefore only be adopted once we have completed the examination of items 7A and 7B. Therefore, we proceed with this item. I would like to inform you that the World Heritage community at large was saddened this year again by the loss of human lives. In Mali, and particularly within and around the World Heritage property of the cliffs on Biagara, land of the Dogons, inter-community conflicts observed in recent months led to acts of violence and deadly attacks, notably on 23rd March 2019 in the Fulani village of Ogosogu, resulting in the death of more than 150 people, and on 9th June 2019 in the Dogon village of Sabonada, which killed at least 25 people. In addition, since our previous sessions, again 3 park staff were tragically killed in the Viragunda National Park while on duty fighting against illegal activities within the parks. Therefore, I would like to propose that tribute be paid to them and that we all observe 1 minute of silence in their memory. Thank you very much.
And now it's the lady from Mali.
I would like to give floor for short invitation to our colleague, Minister of Culture from Mali. Please.
Thank you. Please excuse my emotion. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs les membres du comité, je voudrais tout d'abord remercier Monsieur Aboulfas Garayev, ministre de la Culture de l'Azerbaïdjan, pour l'excellente qualité d'organisation de cette 43e session du comité et davantage pour la chaleur et la fraternité de l'accueil réservé à la délégation du Mali. Je vous remercie pour cette opportunité que vous donnez à ma délégation afin de vous faire le point sur l'état de conservation des falaises de Badjangara. L'occupation du Mali en 2012 par les groupes terroristes et leur présence depuis 2018 dans le centre du Mali où se trouve cet important bien est en grande partie à l'origine des conflits qui, en plus des pertes en vies humaines sans précédent dans notre histoire contemporaine, a des conséquences sur l'ensemble du patrimoine culturel qui caractérise ce site. Monsieur le Président, mon pays n'a aucun doute que les destructions et les dégradations observées dans les différents villages sont le résultat des manœuvres de déstabilisation des communautés Peul et Dogon par les groupes terroristes. Les villages de Koulogo, Ogassagou, Sobanda, Yoro qui ont été attaqués, pour ne citer que ces exemples. Et hier encore, Monsieur le Président, pendant que nous dînions, Ouankaro a été la cible des terroristes. Mon pays, en plus d'apporter des réponses aux situations sécuritaires et humanitaires que provoquent ces conflits, voudrait réaffirmer son engagement à assurer la protection de la valeur universelle exceptionnelle des falaises de Bandiagara. Tous les villages attaqués possédaient des greniers, des cases de femmes menstrues, des cases à palabres, Toguna, des lieux de culte qui ont été dégradés ou entièrement détruits. Ces éléments sont non seulement des attributs importants de la valeur universelle exceptionnelle du bien, mais ils structurent le tissu social des communautés vivant en paix, malgré leur grande diversité culturelle et cultuelle. Suite à l'appel lancé au Comité du patrimoine mondial en vue par le gouvernement du Mali, le Conseil de sécurité s'est mobilisé pour apporter des réponses à ce nouveau cycle de violence en décidant, dans sa résolution 2480, d'étendre le mandat de la MINUSMA au Mali. Monsieur le Président, chers membres du comité, je suis ici, à Baku, pour lancer un appel au Comité du patrimoine mondial en vue d'aider le Mali à préserver le patrimoine culturel des falaises de Badjangara contre les terroristes obscurantistes. Je suis ici sous le leadership de son Excellence Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, président de la République du Mali, qui est aussi le coordinateur de l'Union africaine pour les arts, la culture et le patrimoine, pour demander au Comité du patrimoine mondial de nous soutenir dans nos efforts de construction d'une paix durable. Monsieur le Président, le cas malien est un cas d'école pour le Comité, comme l'a si bien dit le président du Conseil exécutif lors de l'ouverture officielle de cette session. Le Mali est reconnaissant de votre appel, de votre appui à la reconstruction des mausolées de Tombouctou. Aussi, mon pays est-il prêt à partager son expérience de réhabilitation du patrimoine culturel intentionnellement endommagé pour qu'elle serve de source d'inspiration dans un monde en crise où le comité doit trouver de nouvelles réponses. Pour terminer, je voudrais réitérer les remerciements du président de la République du Mali, champion de l'Union africaine pour la culture, les arts et le patrimoine, et les remerciements du gouvernement du Mali à l'UNESCO, à l'ensemble des partenaires ici présents, aux experts maliens et internationaux qui ont accompagné et qui accompagnent le Mali à relever les défis auxquels nous faisons face. Les défis face auxquels le Mali reste et restera debout. Debout pour protéger, debout pour reconstruire, debout pour réhabiliter son patrimoine, notre patrimoine commun, au nom des valeurs que nous avons en partage et au nom de notre humanité partagée. C'est dans l'adversité, dit-on chez moi, que l'on reconnaît ses amis. Et je suis confiante, Monsieur le Président, chers membres du comité, qu'aucun défi, quelle que soit sa taille, aussi grand soit-il, n'est au-dessus de notre créativité, de notre intelligence collective et de notre capacité à faire triompher l'art et la culture sur la barbarie et l'obscurantisme. Je vous remercie de votre bienveillante attention et je vous dis, selon la formule consacrée chez moi, que la paix d'Allah soit avec vous. Wassalam.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Dear committee members, before the start, we will pass to the examination of the item 7. I would like to inform you that we had the 3rd edition of the World Heritage Site Manager Forum, which had started before our committee meeting on 26 June. The capacity building event had gathered nearly 70 site managers from all over the world. I would like to express my sincere thanks to the local organizers, the Board of the Administration of the Old Town İçeri Şehir, Gobelstan Preserves, to the World Heritage Center, the 3 advisory bodies, and of course the World Heritage Leadership Program for organizing with such a great enthusiasm and success this forum. Thank you very much to all of you for having made this event possible. I'm particularly pleased that this year, for the first time ever, both the Young Professional Forum and the Site Managers Forum participants were able to meet and exchange during a full working session dedicated to the nature-cultural interlinkage. So, if you don't mind, I would like now to give the floor to Mrs. Jennifer Sekang Oligeril, Site Manager of the Rock Island Southern Lagoon, Palau, and to Mr. Ghassan Jemali, Site Manager of the Pearlink, Testimony of Island Economy, Bahrain, to give us a few words on the forum. Please, welcome, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are honored to be the representative of this year's Site Managers Forum. The 3rd World Heritage Site Manager Forum was held in Baku, Azerbaijan, from 26th of June until this day. The forum was enriched by presentations and exchanges between site managers, representatives of the advisory bodies, and the World Heritage Center. The forum brought together 60 site managers, coordinators, and practitioners from 41 countries: Afghanistan, Australia, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Cuba, Ethiopia, Germany, Haiti, Jordan, Republic of Korea, Kyrgyzstan, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Malawi, Malaysia, Namibia, Nepal, Norway, Pakistan, Palau, Palestine, Papua New Guinea, Qatar, Romania, Russian Federation, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Slovenia, Solomon Islands, South Africa, St. Kitts and Nevis, Syrian Arab Republic, Turkey, Uganda, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, United Republic of Tanzania, Yemen, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Participants would like to thank the Republic of Azerbaijan for convening the meeting, supporting and facilitating the participation of site managers from SIDS and LDCs, and for providing resources and assistance in making the forum a representative space for discussion and knowledge sharing. Introducing the interaction between the Site Managers Forum, the Young Professionals Forum, together with the İçeri Şehir Administration of Azerbaijan, sparked mutually beneficial ideas for sustainable heritage management practices for the city of Baku, as well as for the respective sites of all participants. World Heritage sites face multiple challenges and changes whilst being required to promote the Sustainable Development Agenda. At the same time, site managers are also exploring and experiencing new opportunities for sharing benefits with a diverse range of communities and environments through key concepts such as effective management, impact assessment, climate change adaptation, and mitigation. The World Heritage Site Managers Forum is a shared space for site managers to meet and exchange and to better understand the World Heritage System. The Site Managers Forum has become a space for discussion about pressing challenges and emerging concepts to promote sustainable heritage management practices.
We, the participants of the Third World Heritage Site Managers Forum, recall the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy adopted by the World Heritage Committee in 2011 through Decision 39, COM 9B. We call upon state parties to commit to the implementation of the strategy, which should be used as a guiding document towards operationalizing capacity building policies at the national, at the regional, and at the local levels. These policies should recognize that capacity building is required at all levels of site management, addressing institutions and communities, including state parties representatives, national focal points, and site managers operating at national, regional, and local levels. Capacity building will require the allocation of adequate resources, time, and expertise. We, the site managers, through our knowledge and experience, are committed to support state parties in initiating, developing, and implementing capacity building opportunities for diverse actors. We can and should be involved as key resources for these activities. We recall the 2018 statements of the Site Managers Forum that emphasized that the term site manager does not fully capture the complexity of coordinated efforts of diverse people involved in this work, which incorrectly implies that it is a task undertaken by a single person rather than as a collaborative process of all those involved. As site managers, we aspire at being continuously involved and included throughout World Heritage decision-making processes for improving management practices and to be more effective in the implementation and use of resources. We would highlight the importance of formally recognizing in the operational guidelines the crucial role site managers play in all the processes of the World Heritage Convention, and to empower and support site managers working in different levels, functions, and capacities. We call upon state parties to include site managers in their delegations to the World Heritage Committee. The creation of effective policies and improvement of management practices is achievable only through the involvement of those included in the wider site management team. A fair representation of diverse site managers should be the driving force when new policies and guidelines are developed within the World Heritage context. Communication is a fundamental component of capacity building and can be enhanced through active web of networks established between site managers and other actors in diverse levels. Capacity building policies should include networking partners such as Category 2 centers and other regional platforms to better understand World Heritage processes and decisions in working languages of the sites. We must also find ways to simplify the technical terminology used within the framework of the World Heritage Convention to enable better and easier translations. The information must reach not only the site managers, but also the wider extent of society to ensure that the World Heritage can have an active role in sustainable development and at the same time share benefits of heritage within the wider society. We call upon the future host countries to continue convening the Site Managers Forum in conjunction with the annual session of the World Heritage Committee. We also encourage state parties to explore the possibility of organizing regional Site Managers Fora to extend the positive impacts of this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And the document is distributed.
The document reflecting the work of this professionals, managers, site managers conference is provided to everyone. You can easily find it in the document and on the site. So we will take it into the note, and we will now proceed to our agenda item 7. Dear colleagues, I would like to inform you.
No, this is before lunch. This is 7A.
Sorry.
Where is the 7? This is 7.
To start,
Read this already.
seems so. Okay. Before we start the discussion on this matter, we proceed to the item 7. I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Rossler, Director of the World Heritage Center, to introduce this item. And now, after that, we will pass to the discussion. So, please, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, document 7 is in front of you, and you all know that the World Heritage Convention, and please, behind me, change the screens, is one of the most successful international instruments for the conservation of natural and cultural heritage sites. Its unique reactive monitoring process highly contributes to efficient monitoring of threats affecting the properties and their mitigation. This document 7 is a key document on global World Heritage conservation issues and contains different parts. In the introduction, document 7 provides a snapshot of the factors impacting the OUV of the properties. As you can see in the next slide, the most reported factors continue to be the lack of management plans or their inadequacy, ill-advised housing, illegal activities, tourism-related activities, ground transport-related development projects, and of course the conflict situations in various parts of the world. The introduction also provides on the states of conservation reports submitted by the state parties. I'm very pleased to say that this year, for the first time, we have received 99% of all reports requested by the committee from the states parties. There's also some information from the Site Managers Forum, which you have just heard, and I think we are all very appreciative of the great work they have been doing during this forum. Next slide, please. In Part 1, Document 7, we propose a summary of the results of the very comprehensive evaluation of reactive monitoring process you had requested at the 40th session in 2016. The two independent experts contracted to conduct this evaluation, Mr. David Shepherd and Mr. Gamini Vishesuriya, are with us today and will present their findings in a few minutes. The first part of the document also addresses one of the committee's concerns of the previous years, the list of World Heritage in danger, and the need to both overcome the negative perception of this list and to identify ways to better assist the state parties with properties on this list and the development of costed action plans. As you can see in the document, the State Party of Romania had requested funding in October 2018 through the UNESCO Participation Programme to organize an international meeting of World Heritage in Danger stakeholders in 2019 in Bucharest. According to the last information we have received from the State Party, the meeting could take place towards the end of September 2019, but we will keep you informed in due course. Last but not least, the first section addresses a request made by the committee last year on the selection of World Heritage properties to be included for discussion. Indeed, you had requested us to consider geographical and thematic distribution of properties as additional criteria when determining when properties should be opened for discussion. Considering one of the recommendations of the evaluation of the reactive monitoring process and discussion with the advisory bodies, the Centre and the advisory bodies concluded that the selection of reports to be discussed by the committee should continue to be guided by scientific criteria and by the urgency of the threats facing the property, as always has been the case since 2003. Therefore, as you saw in your document INF 7, the properties, the Centre and the advisory bodies only proposed for discussion were sites for the removal from the danger list, sites proposed for inscription on the danger list, and if in case any deletion would be proposed. In Part 2, more comprehensive information is provided on emergency situations in conflict areas. This document here alerts you on the tragic loss of human life, and we have just heard from the Minister of Culture from Mali, and the devastating damage and continuous threats facing culture and natural heritage in general. It also provides detailed information on UNESCO's action to advocate and mobilize the international community for the protection of the endangered natural and cultural areas. The destructions, the next slide please, the destructions over the past few years brought the question of reconstruction sharply into focus. Since the last session of the committee and the adoption of the Warsaw Recommendation on the recovery and reconstruction of cultural heritage, several activities have been taking place to disseminate this recommendation. A joint 60-page policy document entitled Culture in the Reconstruction and Rehabilitation of Cities between UNESCO and the World Bank was officially launched in Paris with our ADG in November 2018 and aims at helping development practitioners, national and local authorities and international organizations to integrate culture into all phases of urban reconstruction and rehabilitation processes in crisis situations following conflict or natural disasters. ICROM and ICOMOS also launched in May 2019 a call for expressions of interest for the preparation of a case study as part of a joint project analysis of case studies on recovery and reconstruction. Regarding climate change, you made already comments yesterday, and the updating of the policy document on the impacts of climate change on World Heritage properties, the World Heritage Center has identified 2 senior consultants with extensive experience in both natural and cultural heritage. They have started reviewing all relevant background documents and outcomes of recent meetings held on this issue, as well as contracting other international experts in the field of climate change. They are also designing a questionnaire for a widespread online consultation to be undertaken shortly in order to gather inputs from states parties, advisory bodies, NGOs, civil society, and other major stakeholders and interested parties. We will put in all efforts to have the final document ready for your adoption at the next session in 2020. And of course, we will continue to work on the ground in terms of adapting to climate change. Dear committee members, as part 2 of this comprehensive document, we have also decided with the advisory bodies to address the issue of management plans in the context of urban development. The State of Conservation reports examined this year revealed that many properties have difficulties in implementing management plans as they are not sufficiently well integrated into a supportive planning framework. There is therefore an urgent need to connect management plans for properties located in and around cities and towns within the institutional and regulatory framework of development in the urban setting. The obligation to protect OUV should also be integrated into statutory plans and processes in line with the 2011 UNESCO recommendation on the safeguarding of the historic urban landscape. With international tourist arrivals worldwide reaching 1.4 billion in 2018, tourism is one of the world's largest economic sectors. However, if poorly planned or mismanaged, tourism could have a profound negative impact on World Heritage, values, conservation, and host communities. Indeed, over-tourism may place cultural and natural heritage at risk and directly threaten outstanding universal value, leave communities marginalized, and threaten the future attraction and appeal of the destination. New tools and strategies are needed to help site managers monitor and manage tourism more sustainable. Our Sustainable Tourism Programme provides a global platform to promote and disseminate tools, strategies, and good practices. A visitor management assessment tool is also currently under development to enable site managers to rapidly and efficiently assess how tourism is being managed according to a set of sustainability indicators. Tourism was actually one of the key topics discussed during the Site Managers Forum here in Baku, and there's also a side event on this matter tonight. Last but not least, Mr. Chair, as apparent when looking at all the SOC reports we prepared together, there has been a significant number of HIAs and EIAs requested for World Heritage sites over the past few years. The ICROM IUCN World Heritage Leadership Programme, the World Heritage Center, ICOMOS and IUCN and the International Association for Impact Assessment have therefore embarked on the production of an integrated guidance on impact assessment for World Heritage properties with the aim to providing a sound basis for improved decision-making in World Heritage management. As you indicated, Mr. Chair, the draft decisions 7.2 and 7.3 will be only adopted at the end of this session, to take on any further reflections you have in your discussion of the reports under item 7A and 7B, and that therefore we propose only draft decision 7.1 on statutory matters be adopted immediately after the presentation of the outcomes of the reactive monitoring process and the debate. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor now to the advisory bodies for additional statements on this item. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Just to build on the very good points, I think, made by the Director of the World Heritage Centre in that report that she has just given, let me highlight a number of issues of particular concern for IUCN. In 2019, we continue to see the impacts of a rapidly changing climate on World Heritage areas around the world. The island of Socotra has experienced 3 cyclones in 4 years. Declining sea ice in Shiratoko, Japan, is threatening the integrity of this property. The list of tangible on-ground evidence continues to grow. Recognising that the 2017 IUCN Outlook report highlights climate change as one of the top 3 threats to natural world heritage and the fastest growing and largest potential future threat, IUCN is very pleased to be launching the 3rd global assessment in 2020, and we invite all to attend a side event on this topic this Thursday, as well as related side events that are occurring on climate change regarding the Climate Vulnerability Index and building leadership in climate adaptation events. Furthermore, the IUCN World Conservation Congress in June 2020 will address accelerating climate change mitigation and adaptation as one of 7 core themes. In light of the IPCC and IPBES reports, which I mentioned yesterday, and reinforced by field reports, IUCN reiterates that urgent and rapid action to reduce global warming is essential, and the highest degree of ambition and leadership by all countries is needed to secure the full implementation of the Paris Agreement. It is important that best practice science is combined with global leadership to improve the understanding of impacts and also the vulnerability of World Heritage areas to climate change. IUCN is also very pleased to support the review of the policy on climate change, which is occurring for the next committee meeting. Mr. Chair, we are seeing a continued decline in biodiversity around the world. This year, notable cases include the critically low numbers of the vaquita porpoise in the Gulf of California and key mammal species that underpin the outstanding universal value of Manuvagunda San Flores National Park in the Central African Republic. IUCN draws the committee's attention to the critical importance of the next 12 months for the global community to set the future agenda for biodiversity conservation under the Convention of Biological Diversity post-2020 agenda. IUCN also notes that expanding tourism numbers and infrastructure development are exerting increasing pressures on the world's natural systems in the absence of effective governance and management frameworks. In line with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, we must ensure the sustainable and equitable development of communities, while at the same time ensuring that the OUV of World Heritage is not compromised. In closing, IUCN takes this opportunity to emphasise the important role of building stronger strategic partnerships across states, parties and civil society to protect our global heritage. Evidence-based metrics such as IUCN's Outlook are made possible through partnerships and agreement with civil society. IUCN remains strongly committed to providing independent technical advice, and it's through our on-ground partnerships that we have the opportunity to build that shared capacity. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. ICOMOS would like to comment briefly on 3 themes within the paper before the committee. First, in relation to reconstruction. ICOMOS would like to draw attention to its work with ICROM in compiling case studies on recovery and reconstruction based on analysis that shares a common framework. These case studies, which come from all regions, aim to allow site managers and others to share experience on projects for recovery and reconstruction in order to help better understand the challenges of this work within a World Heritage context. These studies will be available online at the end of the year, and we hope that as a follow-up to this work, if funds allow, there will be an expansion of the number of case studies to allow for an even greater global reach for this project. This work's part of a continuing reflection by ICOMOS on the issues of reconstruction in World Heritage properties. Secondly, in relation to management, the section on management plans in the context of urban development has been mentioned. This focus is crucially on the difficulties of implementing these plans in urban areas, where the plans are not tied into a wider planning framework and thus are not in line necessarily with local development needs. Management plans should be the key tools for World Heritage properties, but as can be seen from examples in SOC reports in recent years, they are often just not strong enough to be respected in relation to development projects. ICOMOS considers that there is a need for further reflection on how the objectives and requirements of management plans in urban areas might be delivered to better address the prevailing pressures that many urban properties face, so that management can be seen to contribute positively to the wider sustainable development processes and the need to protect outstanding universal value. We would welcome the opportunity to promote and pursue this important work in order to strengthen the tools that are available to property managers. Finally, in relation to climate change, ICOMOS would like to say that its Climate Change and Heritage Working Group is collaborating with IUCN's WCPA Climate Change Specialist Group on a joint proposal for a session at the World Conservation Congress in Marseille in June next year, focused on the interlinkages between nature and culture in relation to climate change. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, we have to proceed to the other matter. I would like now to give the floor to Mr. David Shepherd and Mr. Jamini Wijesuria to present to the committee the findings of the evaluation of the reactive monitoring process of the World Heritage Convention. Please, you're welcome.
Thank you, Chair. The Reactive Monitoring Review Team would like to thank the Government of Azerbaijan for their outstanding hosting of this meeting. This review team comprises Gamini and myself. Gamini has worked with ICROM for more than 16 years, extensive experience in capacity building and reactive monitoring. Myself, I was head of IUCN's role at World Heritage from 2008 to 1998 to 2008. It's great to be back. Great to see familiar faces in the audience. Hi, Christina. Hi, Mike. Really indicating the considerable institutional knowledge within the World Heritage family. Next, please. Gamini and I have worked very closely and we feel effectively as a team, and we will jointly present this PowerPoint this morning. We'll cover background process, key observations, recommendations, but the report is substantial, about 150 pages. We would commend that to you. We'll try to focus on the salient points. Next. Background, next. The slide showing the growth of the World Heritage List provides the context for our project and the context for many of the challenges that have been discussed over the last day and a half. Many have mentioned the issue of sustainability, with on the one hand the growth in the list and the other the limited, in fact, static resources available through key organs of the World Heritage Convention to address the challenges. Next. This slide shows the number of SOC reports. It shows the increasing trend, mirroring the growth in the World Heritage List until a period when the SOC reports were capped at 150. This flattening out, shown in the graph, does not accurately reflect the growth of threats to World Heritage properties, which have continued and in fact accelerated, as outlined by Mechtil just now. The issue of cumulative impacts mentioned yesterday is particularly important. These are threats that exist, not being adequately addressed, and substantially increase over time. Next. Reactive monitoring has evolved substantially from an ad hoc to a quite extensive process that exists now. In fact, the first paper to this committee was in 1983, around about nearly 40 years ago. And this indicates that the issue has been around for a long time. I'd refer everyone in the room to the excellent book on the history of the World Heritage Convention by Christina Cameron and Mechtild for more background on this topic of the evolution of reactive monitoring. Next, thank you. The process, the aim of the reactive monitoring team was to be open, consultative, to give everyone who wished to the opportunity to participate. Next, please. One key part was an online survey. We had 90 responses, very good regional and gender balance. The majority of survey respondents were from state parties, 36% from site managers. The mix, although not shown in this slide, was about 74% from cultural sites, 26% natural sites and mixed sites, actually pretty well reflecting the breakup of sites on the World Heritage List. We've been advised from UNESCO World Heritage Centre that the response to this survey was relatively high compared to comparable survey activities. Next, please. The second part was interviews with key stakeholders, 53 persons interviewed covering all of the key World Heritage stakeholders. Those interviewed comprising 65% cultural, 35 natural site representative of, 32% male, 68% female. Questions in the interviews mirrored the terms of reference which are outlined and also those in the online survey. Next, please. Other inputs were provided by the Site Managers Forum. There was quite an extensive session on this project specifically at last year's forum. I'd note that the results of that forum, as it relates to reactive monitoring, are outlined in an annex to our report. We obviously reviewed key documents, many documents, and attended last year's committee. In short, we believe that this review was based on an extensive, comprehensive consultation process, and we hope that this has delivered a credible report to the World Heritage Committee. Next, please. Some key observations. Next, please. The first, and reinforced yesterday and also by virtually all participants, is that reactive monitoring is an essential element of the Convention and a key feature that strengthens the Convention. This was a consistent message throughout. Many mention that this reactive monitoring is in fact the most important process under the Convention, as it is essential if properties are to survive for the future, underlining the importance of the increasing focus on conservation of the world's unique heritage. In fact, if you like, the best of the best. And in fact, if the world can't protect or save these sites, what hope do we have for the rest of the world's heritage? The reactive monitoring team would also note that we did look at similar monitoring schemes of other related conventions, and it is our view that reactive monitoring under World Heritage Convention is the largest and most effective monitoring system existing under any of the conventions, particularly the site-based biodiversity conventions. Next, please. We asked the question of positive and what we've called less positive aspects. Some of the positive aspects, the clear and demonstrated success stories for conservation. Just one example, the salt mine of El Vizcaíno, which was halted through the committee based on 30,000 letters generated through civil society and others in Mexico, which resulted in a significant conservation outcome. Secondly, drawing attention of decision makers, politicians to key issues relating to heritage. Thirdly, supporting dialogue, and we've heard a lot about that, and we feel reactive monitoring does provide an excellent framework for dialogue. Clearly, from World Heritage Committee comments, there are areas that can be improved, but it does provide a significant and important framework. Fourthly, the positive aspect of identifying knowledge gaps, and supporting the development of tools and thematic studies. And Mektil just mentioned the heritage impact assessment. Next. Some of the less positive aspects, the issue of resources, the issue of inadequate time for reporting against volume. One of our respondents compared addressing the volume of material at a World Heritage Committee like trying to drink water from a fire hydrant that's been opened to the full position. Very challenging. The issues were identified relating to reactive monitoring missions. I'd refer delegates to the report for more elaboration. Consistent comments coming through was the issue of politicisation. Also mentioned in the 2011 internal audit of the committee, with World Heritage Committee overturning, weakening or softening recommendations of the advisory body. It was mentioned yesterday that last year's World Heritage Committee meeting entered into history as the first time that 2 sites which were recommended for non-inscription were actually inscribed, and 87% of advisory body recommendations on nominations were changed or overturned. This does pose challenges for the credibility of the convention. And it's noted that inscription of properties, contrary to the recommendations of advisory bodies, often these recommendations are based on integrity, management issues. If they are inscribed, we very quickly see them back either on the SOC or the danger list at subsequent World Heritage Committee meetings. Next. We reviewed the statutory framework, the operational guidelines and the rules of procedure. Respondents generally found these provided an adequate framework. Some noted that, in fact, substantial review or editing could potentially weaken the guidelines, should be avoided. The process of review of operational guidelines is very extensive and time-consuming. I see those in the audience that participated in the 2000 to 2005 review nodding their heads on that point. The real fundamental message was it's not the guidelines, it's the way in which they're implemented is the main issue and challenge. Next, please. Some changes were recommended. These are outlined in the report. The issue of terminology of the danger list. Some found that negative and suggestions were made, outlined in the report. The need for development of costed action plans for danger listed properties, and attention to properties that have been on the danger list for more than 10 years. So the understanding from discussions with key parties is that these could be addressed through review of internal policies and procedure rather than major changes to the operational guidelines. Next, please. We looked at the role of the different actors. The results of the survey and interview underlined particularly the high credibility of the World Heritage Centre and the advisory bodies on reactive monitoring. It noted, as mentioned, the high level of pressure these bodies faced, particularly with the increasing number of World Heritage properties added. Next, please. This graph is point 39 in the report. I won't go through, but it does underlines the high regard of elements of the World Heritage family, particularly the centre, advisory bodies, and also very high rating for the committee itself. Next, please. We asked to look at the individual components of the World Heritage Convention. We looked at the World Heritage Committee based on results from the survey and interviews. And I guess the consistent messages were the importance of decisions reflecting on-ground realities and the need for clear explanation to stakeholders, particularly site managers, and particularly those responsible for implementation. And this issue of clear explanation was also mentioned in the context of translation to local language, which was also mentioned by the delegate from the World Heritage Site Managers Forum from Palau. And the second point was the importance of decisions based on objective and scientific considerations. Next. The World Heritage Centre, participants noted their key role, and a quote encapsulates many of the comments we received, that the centre is very professional, hard-working, helpful to state parties and other stakeholders. Areas of improvement noted the need perhaps for better dialogue between some of the UNESCO regional officers and relevant state parties in relation to reactive monitoring. An issue raised was also the need for enhanced collaboration with other conventions. That was mentioned yesterday by Mechthild in her alphabet soup of acronyms, the BLG, meeting with the CCLG, basically World Heritage Convention meeting with Biodiversity and Cultural Convention. So action is taking place. Next, please. World Heritage state parties. The issue of capacity building was emphasised, and particularly the role of state parties in strengthening capacity of site managers. It was felt that state parties should try to ensure the continuity of staff engaged in reactive monitoring, and the importance of World Heritage orientation sessions, including more attention to reactive monitoring, was noted. A point that was also made is that every World Heritage Committee, there are many state parties in the room, as today, with a great deal of cultural and natural heritage expertise. And the suggestions were made that options to make better use of this expertise should be considered, including options for support of key regions and issues, as outlined for the African presentation yesterday, and for underrepresented regions and areas such as SID, small island developing states. Next, please. Advisory bodies, the feeling was the need that they are doing an excellent work, but the areas of improvement related to missions, particularly the need for continual and effective assessment of performance of mission experts, improving collaborative work between advisory bodies and the World Heritage Centre. Having come back to this forum after 10 years, I think that collaboration has improved, but there's still more that can be done. And exploring smarter approaches to undertaking reactive monitoring missions. And the example given in our report is the use of IT and drones for monitoring natural site as but one recommendation. Next, please. Some specific recommendations for IUCN was to look at ways to increase involvement of other programs and also regional and national offices with World Heritage. For ICOMOS to look at ways to strengthen networks, perhaps looking at some of the approaches of IUCN, and the suggestion made was for looking at options to better use expertise within national committees on reactive monitoring. For ICCROM, recommendation was to explore options to expand activities and with ICOMOS and to also make better use of its worldwide alumni network. Next, please. Civil society is a very important part of the World Heritage Convention. The responses indicated the need for civil society to be more involved and to work more closely with World Heritage state parties and advisory bodies, although noting that that does exist at the moment, and that there are interesting frameworks such as the IUCN World Heritage Outlook process, which could be examined for possible wider application within state parties and other advisory bodies. I'll pass to Gamini to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David. Yes, I'm sitting in this committee somewhere, some corner for the 17th year this time, but my work on World Heritage goes back to 1982, when, as a part of the state party, when we wrote tentative list in 5 minutes and nominations in 3 or 4 nominations overnight. Why I am saying this is that World Heritage is an evolving process, and the word we heard, improvements, is the key to that. So all of us, all of our work has been for the sake of improvements of this process. Let me continue with our observations regarding procedures being followed in the World Heritage process. Next slide, please. Yes. Yeah, as highlighted before, it was observed that operational guidelines and rules of procedure provide an adequate framework for reactive monitoring system. However, there were some suggestions, for instance, for improved criteria for opening up SOCs during the committee meetings. Next slide, please. There were positive comments, as you heard, about the work of the center and advisory bodies mentioned before. We observed certain concerns with regard to the reactive monitoring mission. This is also there is this confusion. This whole system is reactive monitoring system, but also there are the reactive monitoring missions. And also now they have advisory missions. There were some confusions and ambiguity regarding advisory missions. Next slide, please. Our reactive monitoring procedure was considered most effective means to encourage constructive dialogue, which you heard this morning also between key World Heritage stakeholders at the post-inscription stage. However, there were concerns about the missions and selection of mission experts and so on. Next slide, please. I will go through quickly for the sake of time. We observed the danger listing is still a major issue, although majority agreed that it was beneficial to the property. I will show you the picture later on. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the increase of the danger listing. And next slide, please. You can see this overwhelming support or expression of views that people believe that danger listing is beneficial. Next slide, please. There were suggestions for awareness campaign for danger listing, highlighting success stories such as the Belize we discussed last year. And of course, increased funding was also discussed. Next slide, please. Noting the importance of adequate funding and international assistance to address threats to properties on the list of World Heritage in danger, it is considered necessary to have a fully costed action plan before site is inscribed on the danger list. Next, please. It was observed that the removal of properties from the danger list can be a moment for celebrations that can be shared widely. Next, please. Survey and interview noted areas of concern regarding the deletion of properties, considering its impact on the credibility of the convention. The other concerns were the level of engagement and dialogue with the state parties and the need to explore all options available before any deletion happens. Next slide, please. There were divided views on the adequacy of current procedure for deleting properties. Next slide, please. There were proposals for improved procedures for deleting sites. And next one, please. We also looked at the reinforced monitoring procedure, which was little known to many, and our observations were that it could only be used in exceptional circumstances. We have made some recommendations. You want to take it up?
Thank you. Next slide. Next, please. Next. So the report outlines 34 recommendations. The review team suggested high, medium or low priority, with 19 recommendations recommended as high. Priorities are based on the judgment of the Reactive Monitoring Review Team and are based on 6 criteria in point 180. Next, please. The review team recommends an implementation plan, which is outlined as recommendation 34. I won't read through that. Next, please. The review team feels the recommendations, if adopted, will considerably strengthen and improve the reactive monitoring process under the World Heritage Convention. We believe the report and recommendation should be considered as part of an integrated reform process, along with aspects such as the review of nominations leading from the Tunis meeting earlier this year. The team would like to thank World Heritage Committee for your trust in us to undertake this evaluation, state parties, all other World Heritage stakeholders, and particularly the World Heritage Centre and advisory bodies for support, guidance, and general direction throughout this process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for this presentation, dedicated and very thorough. Let me also congratulate you for the excellent and comprehensive work you have accomplished over the past 2 years.
Thank you.
As far as I know, ICROM representative want to make some comments on this report. Are there any? Yes, please. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In this intervention, I'm speaking on, as a joint statement on behalf of all 3 advisory bodies, IUCN, ICOMOS, and ICROM. The advisory bodies would first and foremost like to thank the expert team which carried out the evaluation study on the reactive monitoring process. The process used was very complete and took into account the views of a variety of the key stakeholders in the process. The recommendations are appropriate and will be very useful as we continue to move forward to reform this important part of the World Heritage Convention. The report is overall very positive and highlights that existing procedures are straightforward and clear. We find several of the recommendations of great importance, including the need to ensure better dialogue and communication between states parties, the World Heritage Center, and advisory bodies, and following on, the need to clearly communicate the respective roles of the World Heritage Center, the advisory bodies in the reactive monitoring process to state parties and also to other stakeholders. We also support the need to involve civil society and other stakeholders in an enhanced and more consistent manner in all World Heritage processes, but specifically the reactive monitoring process. The importance of capacity building to improve state of conservation of World Heritage properties is also something to be stressed. The focus of properties on the World Heritage List in danger as a priority area for work of the Convention is also significant. We particularly support the idea of ensuring that all properties on the list in danger have costed action plans along with desired states of conservation for removal of the property from the World Heritage List in danger, although we do recognize that that may be difficult for highly complex sites or highly complex danger situations. In this regard, we also need to ensure that we have we do a better job at communicating that the list in danger is a call for international solidarity rather than a punishment. We further note that the pressures on the reactive monitoring process continue to grow. As more properties are inscribed on the World Heritage List, it is obvious that more properties will need to come under the state of conservation process. We need to ensure that we can plan for this increased workload over the coming years to ensure that we maintain the credibility of the World Heritage List in the long term. While supporting the recommendations, we feel that there is still work to be done to unpack the recommendations and turn them into the necessary policies and operational procedures in order to be implemented. These recommendations should also be linked to other reform processes currently underway on the nomination process and more generally on the issues of dialogue that we discussed earlier this morning. the World Heritage Center and advisory bodies will need to take the time to consider the range of recommendations and to plan for their implementation in an effective way. As importantly, it must be recognized that the implementation of these recommendations and the reform processes in general will take a considerable amount of resources, both in terms of human resources and also financial resources. For this reason, we need to work together with the World Heritage Center and to work together with you, the World Heritage Committee, to develop a costed plan to ensure that these recommendations can be fully implemented in an efficient and effective manner. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor on behalf of the advisory bodies.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this comment. Now, I would like to apply to the committee members. Any comments, interventions, proposals? I can see Australia, please. And then Norway.
Thank you, Chair. We'd like to thank the Centre and the authors for the preparation of a substantive report which we welcome and support. We agree with the substance of the report and that the conservation and management of the world's natural and cultural heritage is vital, and as a consequence it is essential that the statutory processes of the committee underpinning these activities are effective. The report makes a number of recommendations that we consider are all sensible and important, but we also make the observation that in its comprehensiveness, it sets out a massive body of work that needs to be undertaken by the Centre, by the advisory bodies and states parties. So it will be a big collective effort over the next few years, I suggest, in order to achieve it. From Australia's perspective, and with a view to assisting the Centre and the advisory bodies with the work ahead of them, we consider that there are several thematic groups of recommendations that logically should be addressed first. And to us, these are the really critical task of developing criteria by which we can all confidently identify those state of conservation reports that we would like to see opened for discussion here in the committee each year. In mission reports and state of conservation decisions, the need to prioritise actions and clearly link them to potential funding sources and calibrated to the capacity of states parties to actually deliver on those actions over time. Improving the engagement of site managers and technical experts in reactive monitoring. They need to know what's going on, and we need to hear from site managers their perspective on things. And that comes to the challenge of enhancing states parties' understanding and coordination of reactive monitoring activity missions within country. And then considering how to better manage issues related to timing, such as ensuring states parties have time to respond to recommendations and circumstances where there's a mismatch between the time between the receipt of reactive monitoring report, a mission report, and then through the good action and response of states parties to those recommendations, the actual on-ground situation at the time of the committee meeting. We need this capacity to understand what's been done in response to recommendations from monitoring missions after they've been received. We've submitted, Mr Chairman, a small amendment to the draft decision to this effect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Norway, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. The Delegation of Norway would like to thank the Secretariat for the comprehensive report and the advisory bodies for their thorough scientific analysis on sites under threat. This provides a strong evidence-based foundation for the important decisions on state of conservation we now are about to make. The recent global assessment conducted by IPBES presents a gloomy picture of the health of our ecosystems. IPBES Chairman Bob Watson warns, we are eroding the very foundation of our economies, livelihoods, food security, health and quality of life worldwide. World Heritage properties are unfortunately, in many cases, no exceptions. Natural World Heritage sites are recognized as the planet's most important protected areas, providing life-supporting benefits to millions of people. It is critical that these remain protected for future generations. They should set the example for best practice, ensuring their integrity and contribution to nature conservation and sustainable development. The state parties have themselves nominated their World Heritage properties based on their outstanding universal value. However, we have a collective responsibility to safeguard our common heritage. The extensive illegal wildlife trade and the investment in large infrastructure projects that damage World Heritage properties clearly demonstrate this. As such, adherence to Article 6.3 of the Convention, stating that state parties shall not take any deliberate measures which might damage directly or indirectly the cultural and natural heritage situated on the territory of other state parties to this convention. This becomes ever more important. By making the right decisions, the committee has the power to contribute to reversing the negative impacts that are currently unfolding for people and the ecosystem on which we depend. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So we can now proceed to the... No, whom I don't see.
Yeah, Switzerland.
No, so I don't have any interventions from the committee members, so I'm giving the floor to Switzerland, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. C'est la Suisse qui va parler et faire une déclaration au nom d'un certain nombre de pays, la Belgique, le Danemark, la Finlande, la Jamaïque, la Lituanie, le Luxembourg, le Monténégro, les Pays-Bas, la Slovénie, la Suède, la Tchéquie. Monsieur le Président, le changement climatique, l'urbanisation croissante, la perte de biodiversité, les besoins énergétiques ou encore le tourisme de masse sont quelques-uns des défis auxquels la conservation de notre patrimoine est confrontée. La protection de ce patrimoine représente en même temps une opportunité pour répondre à ces défis, une opportunité politique à saisir. Nous pouvons faire de la Convention et de la valeur universelle exceptionnelle des instruments phares pour la réalisation de l'agenda 2030 et aider à répondre aux situations de fragilité, au lieu de cultiver la perception des contraintes qui aboutissent à des décisions dans lesquelles beaucoup d'États parties ne se reconnaissent pas toujours. À l'heure d'entamer les travaux d'examen des rapports d'état de conservation, nous souhaitons, en amont des discussions, encourager les membres du comité à répondre à cette responsabilité. Monsieur le Président, nous restons convaincus que pour avoir un impact significatif, le comité a le devoir de considérer ce qu'il peut apporter pour renforcer la crédibilité de la Convention sur la substance, sachant que les questions statutaires sont traitées par d'autres initiatives, comme le groupe de travail ad hoc. Nous saluons les efforts engagés par les États parties, en collaboration avec le Centre du patrimoine mondial et les organisations consultatives, pour renforcer la protection et la gestion des biens sur leur territoire à l'appui des décisions du comité. Nous rappelons que le système d'état de conservation est là pour soutenir et guider l'action et non pour accuser ou punir. Une majorité des dossiers soumis à la considération du comité, qu'il s'agisse des rapports d'état de conservation ou des dossiers d'inscription, démontrent largement qu'il est non seulement possible mais aussi adéquat de suivre les processus établis. Nous espérons fortement qu'à la fin de la session de Baku, le dialogue sur la substance l'aura emporté sur les intérêts particuliers. Monsieur le Président, nombreux sont ici présents les États, comme d'ailleurs les professionnels, la société civile et les jeunes, qui travaillent d'arrache-pied et soutiennent le renforcement des capacités pour la conservation et la gestion des biens. À long terme, c'est leur motivation qui est menacée par une approche trop souvent inconsistante de nos travaux. Cela doit nous préoccuper toutes et tous et il est primordial d'assurer la confiance et de les assurer de notre confiance. Je vous remercie et désolé pour les quelques secondes de trop. Merci.
Thank you. Now, Hungary, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for not praising our plate earlier. I was hoping the head of delegation could deliver a very short statement at this item. We would like to thank the Secretariat for this very thorough report, which is one of the most important reports we need to look at. It's an important tool to help us with our key role which is assessing the conservation of sites already on the World Heritage List. As a general remark, we would like to state that we respect the right to pursue economic development, but that the impact on the outstanding universal value of World Heritage sites cannot and should not be a matter of compromise. We need to support socioeconomic development to help uplift and alleviate the problems of poverty many regions are facing. But we strongly believe that the socioeconomic development and the World Heritage status are not mutually exclusive. They can and have been successfully reconciled by many states parties, and this should be the way to go for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Greece, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. First, I would like to thank in my turn the host country for the excellent organization of this committee session. In the context of the thorough presentation by the Director of the World Heritage Center, and especially concerning Part 2 of the relevant document, which refers to pressing conservation issues, I would like to take this opportunity to inform you on a scientific international conference which was held in Athens on 21 and 22 of June, entitled Impacts of Climate Change on Cultural Heritage, Facing the Challenge. The aim of this conference was to draw the attention of the international community to the severe impacts of climate change on all aspects of world cultural heritage, and in particular on the integrity of monuments and sites of universal value. The conference offered an opportunity to explore a framework of viable and concrete action regarding monitoring, protecting, and strengthening the resilience of the world's cultural and natural heritage against the destructive effects of climate change. We hope that the conclusions of this conference, which are available online, will contribute to the overall discussion about this timely and pressing issue, also in view of the UN Summit on Climate Change in New York in September. In this regard, Greece is looking forward to closely working with UNESCO and its consultative bodies, building on the work already done so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one non-governmental organization, World Heritage Watch. Please, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. World Heritage Watch is a global network of more than 150 civil society actors and indigenous peoples from 59 countries. In our annual reports, we have covered over 100 World Heritage properties. Based on this experience, we would like to share some observations and recommendations on the state of conservation reports of state parties. We have seen many cases of state parties' state of conservation reports which do not provide the comprehensive, correct, and/or up-to-date information required to allow the committee a fully informed assessment of the property. Inconvenient developments are whitewashed or remain unreported. Questionable plans and projects are not disclosed in time. Some reports have been copy-pasted from year to year, and photos up to 5 years old have been used. Such conduct undermines the Convention, seriously impedes the work of the Center and advisory bodies, and must have tangible consequences. Numerous documents call for the participation of civil society in all processes of the Convention. Much progress has been made to put this goal into practice, most recently through the proposed amendments of the operational guidelines. However, full and effective participation depends on transparency and full access to information. All state parties' state of conservation reports must be made public in full and in a timely manner in order to allow civil society to make meaningful contributions. There are cases where state parties seem to ignore requests for information from the World Heritage Center, do not submit state of conservation reports over several years, or refuse their reports to be made public in full. A repeated failure by state parties to submit truthful, comprehensive, reflective, relevant, and up-to-date state of conservation reports should be sufficient to establish an ascertained risk to the property and be sanctioned accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So, as far as I know, there is no any other comments. I would like to give floor to Mrs. Rossler for brief answer with the climate change matter, and then we will apply to rapporteur to start discussion on the draft.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. There were no really specific questions on parts of the document, but on the climate change, and I would like to thank Greece for the... Oh, sorry.
Australia, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just on a point of order to help us understand how this agenda item is going to proceed. We're looking today to make a decision in relation to the statutory elements, but Australia would certainly want to make an intervention in relation to climate change. So I'm working on the assumption that there will be an opportunity later in the committee meeting to do so. If there's not, then Australia would want to make that intervention at this time, but we're happy to wait for the next opportunity.
Mrs. Ross. Are you ready to make this intervention now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
Australia wishes to express its disappointment at the slow progress made on the review of the policy on climate change. We've lost the sense of urgency and momentum established at Krakow and reinforced in Manama last year. We must recover that momentum and that sense of urgency and recover them quickly. We need a contemporary, evidence-based policy that sets the foundation for tractable climate action in the World Heritage System. So perhaps the best thing Australia can do here in Baku as a states party, with an extensive natural World Heritage estate already being impacted by climate change, is to set out what we expect to see in the revised climate change policy. First, we want the policy to clearly articulate the existential threat climate change poses to many World Heritage properties. For an increasing number of properties, there is no greater threat. Second, the policy must recognise the Paris Agreement as the primary intergovernmental framework for climate change mitigation and adaptation by states parties. This is where the climate change heavy lifting needs to be done. This does not mean the policy should be silent on mitigation. We need our World Heritage properties to be showcases of exemplary conservation management, and they can be showcases of local and sectoral mitigation efforts too. Carbon neutral tourism is an obvious example. Third, the policy should focus on the comparative advantage of the World Heritage System in management, and that means adaptation and a new emphasis on managing for resilience. The 2007 policy makes the point that site-specific nature of climate change impacts make these properties ideal as laboratories for testing innovative adaptation solutions. There is a growing body of evidence about the criticality of managing for resilience in natural systems. In short, it means eliminating as many pressures as possible in order to strengthen the capacity of our World Heritage properties to adapt to climate change. Fourth, we would want to see a clear articulation of how a revised policy will engage with the operational guidelines and be embedded in the key processes of the Convention. On this point, we would not expect to see propositions that climate change threats would form the basis for in-danger listing individual properties, because this is a global problem not amenable to site-level intervention. But we do need to find a way to recognise the reality that whole categories of World Heritage properties globally are threatened by climate change: coral reefs, glaciers and mountain forest ecosystems, to name three examples. So fifth, we need to understand the vulnerability of World Heritage properties to climate change, so our site managers are empowered to adaptively manage those vulnerabilities, which differ from property to property and have critical social and economic dimensions. Sixth, the Vilm workshop made recommendations on the structure of a revised policy. They were sound and logical, including periodic review and, critically, an implementation plan. There's no point having a policy if it's not backed by action. Seventh and last, the 2007 policy has a brief legal annex that quite inadequately addresses questions about what happens if the outstanding universal value of a property is affected permanently by climate change. This is one of the most significant questions facing the Convention over the coming decade, and we need the revised policy to seriously address it. I have no doubt we will find ourselves in circumstances where the baseline of how we define OUV shifts, and we must be ready to deal with it. This is our new reality. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We will note it. Now we have again one apply for 2-minute intervention, or New Zealand. I don't see where this is.
Tihei Modi Ora, ina mana, ina reo, rauranga tēnā mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Greetings from Aotearoa, New Zealand, in Tanzania Māori, our indigenous language. To translate, behold the breath of life, to the leaders, to the orators, to the many that have gathered. Greetings, greetings, greetings to you all. Mr. Chairman, congratulations to the Republic of Azerbaijan for your hosting of this important meeting. and thank you for this opportunity to speak at the outset of the meeting to express Aotearoa New Zealand's views as an observer state party on the importance of the deliberations at this meeting. In New Zealand, we see our World Heritage properties as our share of the most remarkable places on earth. They are our contribution to our global shared heritage. We join with our colleagues represented by Switzerland in acknowledging the role shared heritage has as a flagship opportunity to lead the way in responding to many of the universal challenges and pressures that the conservation of our heritage is facing. This includes climate change, sustainable management, and tourism pressures. To maintain this flagship status, World Heritage is dependent on committee deliberations and decisions that look to strengthen the credibility of the World Heritage List. In our view, the credibility of the list rests on decisions from the committee that commit to the principles, methods, and processes that have been agreed by parties to the Convention over time and are set out in the operational guidelines. We look forward to the deliberations at this meeting, acknowledging particularly the role of the committee members in decisions that will mark the future of World Heritage for all parties. We also take the opportunity to acknowledge the efforts of all parties, the World Heritage Centre and the advisory bodies in preparing the nomination documentation and advice on protection and management that the committee will consider at this very important meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Mrs. Rossler.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to briefly reply on all the debate on climate change. Of course, we need to keep in mind the different processes. We have the UNESCO climate change policy. We will prepare for the next session the policy document on the impacts of climate change on World Heritage properties as per your decision. And I found it very useful that Australia shared with us the points you just made so that the consultants, which are already hired, one of them is here in the room, can take this on board. And I find this very constructive and very useful. And to answer the question from Greece, we also need to ensure that the different processes go not into different directions. So, because you mentioned also the UN summit in September 2019. So that's all I would like to say. I'm very happy that this debate is taking place and we will certainly bring it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rossler. Now I would like to ask the rapporteur about the draft, what is going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've received one amendment from the Delegation of Australia for 43Com 7.1. It's a proposal for a new paragraph which would be inserted at paragraph 7, so a new paragraph 7. It reads, agrees that the World Heritage Centre should prioritise implementation of the high priority recommendations with an initial focus on those relevant to communication, capacity building, including for site managers and finance. Thank you.
Committee members, any comments on this item? Any rejections? Maybe? I don't see any. I don't see any. Okay. Can we accept it like that? You know that we are going to approve today the certain part of the decision until 2 items will be left after the discussion approval. So it will come to the draft decision 43Com 7.1. Full text is in front of you with amendments of Australia, which I found doesn't have any rejections. So can we approve it in whole until number 13? Thank you very much. Approved. So I would like to remind you that the other 2 positions of this draft resolution are open for changes, discussions, and amendments during this period of time until we finalize discussion of all the sides. Thank you very much. We are moving now to the next item, I would like to inform all the participants that in the morning we had a bureau meeting, and I have to deliver the recommendations of this morning to the plenary. They're connected with some specific items, and I hope that you will support with full understanding of our advice. We would like to proceed with first, in advance, with the examination of the draft decisions concerned with the item 7A22 concerning the state of conservation, the Old City of Jerusalem and its walls, and 7A.29 to be proposed under the state of conservation of Hebron Al-Khalil Old Town immediately now, and I will therefore proceed with this draft decision. As you know, a draft decision 7A.22 has been proposed under the state of conservation of the Old City of Jerusalem and its walls. This draft decision can be found in 7A Add 3. This draft decision was the subject of very intensive negotiations and has been agreed upon by all the parties concerned. I would like, therefore, to propose this matter to be adopted without debate. Furthermore, I would like also to inform the consensus implies no statements or declarations be made after the adoption of this draft decision. I count on your understanding and support on this matter, and I don't see objections. I declare decision 43-7A22 adopted. Thank you. A draft decision 43-7A29 has been proposed under the state of conservation of Hebron Al-Khalil Old Town. This draft decision can be found in document 7A Add 3 and corrigendum. This draft decision was the subject of other intensive negotiations and had been agreed by all the parties concerned. So again, I apply to committee members to approve this item without debate, and I apply to all of us to avoid any statements and declarations to be made after the adoption of this draft. I see no objections, and I'm thankful for your understanding. So the draft decision 43-7A29 is adopted. Thank you very much. So now we proceed. So we are moving correctly on our schedule, so we have time to start consideration of the items. Of the matters proposed for the discussion. According to the paragraph 119 of the operational guidelines, the committee shall review annually the state of conservation of properties on the list of World Heritage in danger. We have now reached this crucial part of our agenda, which is at the heart of the convention. Before we start with the examination of individual state of conservation reports, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Rossler, Director of the World Heritage Center, to introduce these items. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As we discussed this morning in the Bureau, for the sites which are open for discussion, there was one addition which I announced there for a proposal to open by Indonesia for a site in Vietnam. So we issued a new INF 7 Rev 3. And, Mr. Chair, the order of the discussion is first the natural sites for 7A, and then we go into the cultural sites for 7A. So we go according to your book, but we start with natural heritage here. And the team is already there to look into that. Thank you.
So, now I invite Mr. Debonet, Chief of the Nature, Tourism and Outreach Unit of the World Heritage Center, to read the list of the properties of the Asia-Pacific region for which the reports are proposed for adoption without discussion. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have two properties from the Asia-Pacific region that are proposed for adoption without discussion. One is the tropical rainforest heritage of Sumatra in Indonesia, and the second one is Eastern Nile in the Solomon Islands. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. There are two sites, Tropical Rainforest Heritage of Sumatra, Indonesia, and East Nile, Solomon Islands. Thank you. And if there are any objections to these items, we propose it to approve it without any discussion. So we can approve it. So we approve these items. Thank you very much. So now the floor is going again to Mr. Debonet for the next information.
Thank you. So the next region is the Europe and North America region, and we have one property on the list of World Heritage in Danger, which is also proposed for adoption without discussion, and this is the Everglades National Park in the United States of America. Thank you.
Committee members, any objections?
There is somebody running this one?
I don't see.
This one. I don't know what is he running.
NGOs?
Yes.
Do you want to talk, to speak? Please, welcome.
Hi, my name is Fariza Farhan, and I am from Sumatra. We work to protect the Loisa ecosystem, the last place on Earth where orangutan, tiger, elephant, and rhino coexist in the wild. The Loisa ecosystem is a critical part of the tropical rainforest heritage of Sumatra. I would like to applaud the Indonesian government for its work with civil society to increase patrol in this area. However, we need to redouble our efforts to further reduce poaching, illegal logging, and encroachment. But even worse, large hydro dams are proposed within the Loisa ecosystem national strategic area. Each of these dams would destroy the habitat of critically endangered orangutan and elephants. The Tampur Lesten Dam, in particular, would have a devastating impact. It would stand nearly 200 meters tall in an earthquake zone. If built, it will cut the migration route for elephants, disrupting their movements to and from the property. This fragmentation of elephant habitat would severe impact on the outstanding universal value of the property. I thank the committee for requesting rigorous environmental impact assessment that examine the impact of these dams. This necessitates a moratorium on all dam works while this assessment occurs. There are less than 200 elephants left in this area, and we cannot allow this dam to push the Sumatran elephant closer to extinction. I also point out the impact of the proposed Batang Toru Dam on the world's only population of Tapanuli orangutan, first described as a new species in 2017. It is the world's most endangered member of family of great apes. This unique habitat should be added to the World Heritage property, not fragmented by dam works. In the medium term, we need to work together to extend this World Heritage property to incorporate the entire Loisa ecosystem, the richest habitat for critically endangered orangutan, rhinos, tiger, and elephant. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this comment. I would like to apply to all those who are interested in the comments with the files. Please give us information about your intervention before we pass to another question to avoid misunderstandings. So thank you very much, and we now return to the Europe and North American region with the only one site, Everglades National Park from United States of America. Any objections to approve this decision from committee members? I don't see any. Thank you very much. Approved. Any comments from NGOs or others? Don't see any. Thank you very much. Mr. Debonet, please. Now we move to Latin America and Caribbean region.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we also have one property in the Latin American and Caribbean region on the list in danger, which is proposed for adoption without discussion. And this is the Rio Platano Biosphere Reserve in Honduras. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I see you. I like seeing you jumping in.
Thank you very much. We have one site, Rio Platano Biosphere Reserve from Honduras. Is there any objections from the committee members to approve the decision draft which is supplied to you, delivered to you? No. Observers? Don't see any. Thank you very much. We approve it. What is the lake? So we would like to start the examination of the natural properties located in the African region. I would like to give now the floor to the delegation of Burkina Faso to present to the committee the reason why it is requested to open the State of Conservation report on the Lake Turkana National Parks in Kenya. Please. Burkina Faso, please. Maybe we are going ahead of schedule. Some delegations are not ready to
Oui,
intervene.
nous demandons de passer la parole à une autre partie, le temps que Son Excellence revienne de notre conversation. Merci.
Okay, okay. We have next Tanzania. Tanzania ready to, delegation of Tanzania to present the committee the reason why it is requested open the State of Conservation reported the Selous Game Reserve in Tanzania. Are you ready to provide the documents?
Maybe I have to explain.
Mrs. Rossler, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to recall what the procedure is. Members of the committee requested to open State of Conservation reports, which originally were not opened, proposed to be opened for discussion by the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies. So what the chairperson is asking, that the delegation who wished to open the item explains the reason why the item should be opened. And then you all have a discussion about it, and the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies give explanations, answer any questions if required. So that's the process we are looking at the moment. Thank you very much.
Tanzania, are you ready to give explanation, or should we approve it like that? You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair. We examined the draft decision and the situation on the ground with regard to this Selous Game Reserve project, and we thought there were issues in the draft decision that could not go hand in hand with what is happening on the ground. Chair, we submitted also our observations in writing, and this situation of not reconciling with the observations some of those observations of the advisory bodies necessitated us to submit a request to re-examine the whole draft decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask Mr. Debonet and IUCN any answer for this proposal from Tanzania.
Chair, at this stage, Tanzania has not asked us any specific questions, so they just mentioned that they have amendments to the draft decision, so I don't know if we would then have to go to these amendments, but we have not been asked any specific question or to react to.
They propose to open the discussion due to this fact. That's why we're putting it to the discussion matter. If there is no reason for that, so let's proceed as we're supposed to do it in advance. Angola, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. En fait, l'Angola aimerait intervenir sur le cas de Selou pour apporter certains éléments qui devaient être considérés par le membre du comité. Donc, j'aimerais ici présenter quelques éléments pour votre considération. Chairperson, while we admit that the analysis made by the advisory body on this site present a fair view, we would also like to note that the issue of heritage conservation versus development has reached new high within the history of the committee. As debated in detail yesterday through the item 5D, Tanzania and other African countries are increasingly at odds as they strive to balance the twin concept of heritage and conservation. We are aware that plans for the Stigl George hydropower project by Tanzania are well underway, and our position is to encourage a continuous constructive dialogue between the State Party of Tanzania and the advisory body that will ensure the preservation of the OUV of this important property. To this end, Chairperson, we propose that the State Party of Tanzania be given once more a chance to clarify on its position in view of implementation of this project, and we have also submitted some amendment on the draft decision. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Hungary, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. According to our understanding, the construction of the Stiglitz Gorge Dam has been started last year without taking into account the previous decisions of the World Heritage Committee, which were made on its 36th and 40th sessions. This February, an Egyptian company has been contracted to design and construct the dam and the power plant in October 2018. Construction of the facility involves the building of a main dam of about 134 meters high, creating an expected reservoir length of 100 kilometers, covering an area of about 1,350 square kilometers, meaning that the average width of the reservoir will be more than 13 kilometers. These figures alone indicate that this project will have a negative impact, a serious negative impact on the OUV of the site, even if we forget about the expected influences on the upstream and downstream sections of the Rufiji River water regime, as well as on the whole catchment area. As a consequence, Hungary supports the draft decision without serious and relevant amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. China, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Keeping in mind what has been stated as China's position for the item 5E, China would like to second the position of the distinguished delegate from Angola and would like to support the reasonable request from Tanzania. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Norway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Norway understands that Tanzania wishes to achieve its energy objectives, but Norway also strongly supports the committee's position that the construction of dams with large reservoirs within the boundaries of World Heritage properties is incompatible with the World Heritage status. This position should apply to any World Heritage property, regardless of the size of the property. The knowledge we now possess about the environmental risks and impacts of hydropower development, as well as the importance of biodiversity and ecosystem services for sustainable development, makes an even stronger case that this should be the standard in the most important protected areas in the World Heritage properties. Our role and mission as committee members is to ensure that OUV is conserved and protected. Last year, the committee requested Tanzania to consider alternative options to meet its energy needs, urged the state party not to proceed with the project prior to an SEA reviewed by IUCN, and requested an invitation for a reactive monitoring mission. Norway commends the positive results in reducing poaching in the property. However, the situation described in this year's document is of utmost concern. The Stigler's Gorge hydropower project is proceeding. According to IUCN, at least 25 square kilometers of forest has already been cleared. The logging started prior to the completion of an SEA and without a reactive monitoring mission. Moreover, the EIA is considered below acceptable standards and as such not providing credible assessment of the potential impact of the property's OUV. Norway finds the draft decision accurate with regards to the current situation. The situation is critical and evolving, and reinforced monitoring mechanisms should be applied. Norway hopes that the draft decision demonstrates that the international community cares about Selous and that there is a will to assist Tanzania in finding solutions that will not have detrimental impact on one of Africa's most important protected areas, an area with outstanding universal value for all of us. Norway supports the draft decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Burkina Faso.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La réserve de gibier de Selous de l'État partie de la République de Tanzanie, inscrite sur la liste du patrimoine mondial en 1982, suivant les critères 9 et 10 de la Convention, a subi d'importantes menaces dont le braconnage exacerbé qui a conduit à son inscription sur la liste du patrimoine mondial en péril en 2014. Le suivi de la dynamique des populations animales de ces 2 dernières années a montré une diminution du braconnage, soit environ 4 carcasses d'éléphants. Cependant, le rapport du Centre du patrimoine mondial et de l'UICN recommande d'appliquer le mécanisme de suivi renforcé au bien compte tenu de certaines incohérences constatées et susceptibles d'affecter la VIE du bien. Monsieur le Président, malgré ces menaces avérées, la réserve de gibier de Selous demeure une des plus grandes zones protégées de l'une des plus vastes zones sauvages restantes en Afrique. La présence d'importantes populations d'éléphants de savane d'Afrique, de rhinocéros noirs, de lycaons, d'hippopotames, de buffles et de nombreux ongulés tels que les hippotraques noirs, les bubales, les grands koudous, les élans, les yous, ainsi que les crocodiles du Nil et plusieurs espèces d'oiseaux, notamment ceux endémiques de Tanzanie, démontrent l'importance du bien pour l'Afrique et du monde entier. En outre, la réserve de biosphère de Selous est liée fonctionnellement à la réserve de gibier de Niassa au Mozambique et cela constitue un facteur important pour le maintien de l'intégrité de l'écosystème des 2 réserves. Monsieur le Président, Partant de ce constat, notre délégation souscrit à l'amendement porté sur le projet de décision par l'État partie de l'Angola et encourage le Centre du patrimoine et l'UICN à poursuivre les communications avec l'État partie de la République unie de Tanzanie pour une préservation du bien d'important capital pour la communauté scientifique et surtout pour l'humanité. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Before going to give the floor to another speaker, I would like to have a consultation with the committee members. We are going into the discussion, serious discussion, which requires certain time. Now, according to the schedule of the conference, we have in 3 minutes to have a rest for the interpreters, for all of us. So I propose to break now. And maybe if you will permit me, we will go further with this discussion after lunch, immediately. But we have 3 minutes, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, 3 minutes. There are some list of the heritage in danger located in Africa region for adoption without discussion. Mr. Debonet, please, can you give us the information?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So indeed, there is a number of sites that are proposed for adoption without discussion, and these are the Manovogunda St. Floris National Park in the Central African Republic, Mount Nimba Strict Nature Reserve, a transboundary site between Côte d'Ivoire and Guinea, the Garamba National Park in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Kahuzi-Biega National Park in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Okapi Wildlife Reserve, also in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Salonga National Park in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the Virunga National Park in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Further, we have the rainforests of the Atsinanana in Madagascar, the Aïr and Ténéré Natural Reserves in Niger, and Niokolokoba National Park in Senegal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. As far as I understand, these all items had been consulted to be left in the list of danger without any consultation and debates during the committee. If you don't have any objections, we can approve this item, and then after the lunch immediately we'll return to the discussion of the previous matter concerned with Tanzanian item. I don't see any objections. Thank you very much. We approve this item. Have a good time during the lunch. In 2 hours we resume our discussions. Thank you.